Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cover to Cover. You're here with Mo,
Andrea,
and Morgan.
Today we want to talk again about the encroaching robot writing apocalypse, author George R.R. Martin's changing career path, messages in a bottle, and we have a really special guest joining us today to help us celebrate mermaid fiction.
woo!
Hence our really cool outfits that we're wearing. But first, we really need to visit the idea again of fan fiction. So we've previously talked about fan fiction and the fun and complicated storylines that are birthed out of our desire to control what happens to our favorite characters. So imagine if you happened across a fan fiction novel instead of the official text and you read that instead. Well, internet readers beware, because there is a story trending in the news right now depicting this very tragic situation.
Twitter user Shelly Zhang came upon a series of interesting tweets from her friend who was reading Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix for the first time. Spoiler alert. She was very confused by some of his questions and was really thrown off when he began asking questions about the death of Dudley Dursley, Harry's mean and abusive cousin. Spoiler alert, again, don't watch if you haven't read Harry Potter. Dudley doesn't die in book 5 of the Harry Potter series. So Shelley did some digging. It turns out her friend found a fan fiction edition of the book online, and that's what he was reading. The tweet has gone viral. And this is becoming a cautionary tale. Be wary where you source your information from, and always check with your reading buddies. Come on, guys.
I love this story because besides the death of Dudley Dursley, if you read the story, there were some other things that happened in it that were very dark and very different from the first 4 Harry Potter novels. So he just blindly accepted that, she kind of deviated. The books got like a lot more adult and they were just killing off characters brutally. And he accepted that. So that's an interesting thing for him to do.
He's just like, this doesn't seem like the J.K. Rowling I know.
Yeah, he's like,
all right,
whatever. And I love that he texts her so much. He's like, so what about Dudley? And she's just like, what are you talking about?
What's more interesting to me is that this guy did not realize, he found this somewhere, a free version that he's reading, and he didn't realize it wasn't the right one.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is why you should buy your books and do not bootleg them. It's so important. You never know what you're going to end up with.
True.
Well, in other internet-related news, Google is at it again to make our lives easier and a little more terrifying. They have awarded the Press Association, which is the largest British news agency, $800,000 to build software to automate the writing of 30,000 local news stories a month.
Google has created a fund known as the Digital News Initiative with a goal to invest over $170 million to streamline and improve digital news across Europe. The Press Association is working with Herbs Media, a tech startup that focuses on automation. Together, they are working on a software project called Radar, which stands for Reports and Data and Robots. Radar will collect information from local databases, government agencies, and local law enforcement. Stories will be created from the information using natural language generation, which converts the data into words. The funds will also allow for the hiring of 5 journalists who will oversee the stories produced so they can identify data sets, curate and edit the news stories produced.
Peter Clifton, who is the editor-in-chief at the Press Association, has said that human journalists will still be a vital role in this process, but Radar will allow the news outlet to scale information to a level that was not possible before. But still, what do you guys think? Is this really helpful, or is it super terrifying?
Okay, so I have a couple questions. I was a journalism major in college, and so we took law and ethics classes. So when it comes to ethics of journalism, there is always the question of, should you post this? Like, should you put this out there, or should you not? So who is overseeing that? Exactly. And then law, can a computer be sued for libel?
Right. Well, so I guess the role of the computers is basically they're doing the legwork. They're just compiling all of the data and smushing it together. And then I guess the role of the 5 journalists then is to kind of police and oversee that information.
But how will they be able to determine between fake and real news?
Oh, that's a great question. I wonder if they're working on some algorithm that's fake news algorithm.
But still, this is an opportunity for someone to go in and hack this.
Absolutely.
Right. And I don't know about y'all, but I get all my news stories from Facebook. I just, when I see my friends' statuses, I'm like, hey, news, retweet, or repost.
It's not 100% untrue what you've just said.
Totally kidding. Don't do that.
But it's really interesting though, because it can be seen as a good thing, because it does free up time for other journalists to pursue better endeavors, or more, focus in on better stories instead of kind of working on the nitty gritty sort of what's going on around town stuff, which is really important information to share, but maybe could be handled by a robot. I don't know. I'm feeling really mixed emotions about it.
Yeah, are we giving too much power to robots? Will they kill us?
Yes, they will. So look out for that. Well, let us know in the comments at least how you guys feel about robots. And also, maybe it's a good thing, because maybe these robots can help out our friend George R.R. Martin, who doesn't seem to have time to finish The Winds of Winter, so maybe they could help him out. But he's certainly making time for other things.
The HBO adaptation of Game of Thrones might be winding down, but Martin's involvement in television is not over yet. He's a very busy man. He has reportedly signed on to be an executive producer on a new fantasy adaptation of the 2010 bestseller, Who Fears Death. The story is set in post-apostolic, I can't even speak about this one, in Africa, and features a heroine who becomes the target of evil as she learns she has magical powers. Martin's role is unclear yet, but still developing. But having his name attached to the production could mean great success for the show. It's still being developed, but production should begin shortly.
Okay, that's fine or whatever. So he has time to work on this. Plus, he has his novella, Night Flares, which has been picked up by the Sci-Fi Channel. But, I'm sure that he's still finding time to work diligently on The Winds of Winter. And he did actually recently offer some insight and update just last week to hold us over.
Okay, Mo, it's going to be okay.
It's
going to be okay.
We'll see.
Martin recently participated in a Q&A on his Not a Blog site. One fan asked whether or not The Winds of Winter would deviate from the storyline on Game of Thrones. As it progresses through the next season, Martin responded with some actual information. He said Winds of Winter will be different in some ways, but parallel to the show in others. At this point, there are probably a dozen characters who are dead on the show but alive in the books, so it would be impossible for the two to remain the same. Also, of course, there are characters in the books who have never even existed on the show, like Victarion Greyjoy, John Connington, Penny, Arianne Martell, etc.
Well, at the risk of not giving away too many spoilers, this really is exciting news, because I think the names that he listed are probably symbolic of some of the storylines that we can expect to follow when Winds of Winter does finally make its debut, which is when, again, George? Okay, well, I guess we'll just all have to wait and find out. And I'm obviously upset about this, but what do you guys think? Do you think it's good for an author to explore his career paths, or what's the deal? Like, should he focus in on this promise he made to us over 20 years ago that he was going to finish this?
Some commitment issues, Georgie?
I think he
we
does.
should talk.
I think we need to get him some of those Google robots. Google, if you could please contact Mr. Martin and just send over your Google bots and help him finish this.
That's how Google works, yes.
He still hasn't contacted me for counseling.
The therapy.
Yeah.
Project management.
Yes.
Management.
George, Morgan is your girl.
Contact me. You can
Yeah.
reach out to me, cover to cover. You can find us. I'll help you get this done.
Yes. Give us a shout.
Well, great. So we actually have a surprise for you guys. We have a special author on the show today, and she is going to be talking about her book, Breakwater, and it's part 1 of a 4-part series. So we're really excited, and in her honor, we have dressed up as mermaids today because #mermaid fiction. Why not? She's awesome, and we're really excited that Catherine Jones-Payne is joining Cover to Cover today with us.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, Catherine. We're all really excited about your book. We think, first of all, that the cover is beautiful and glorious. I know we
you.
threw an image up there for a while for you guys to see. And also the feel of it is really
smooth.
smooth.
Yeah.
I've never felt such a thing.
I loved this book. Will you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Breakwater is set in an underwater city of mermaids and naiads. You guys can probably all picture mermaids pretty easily. Naiads, they're originally from Greek river spirits, actually, although they actually have a bodily form in this book. They're not just spirits, but they look a little more like humans. And the naiads in the city are looked down on. The mer are the more powerful people in the city, and the book follows the story of Jade, who is just shocked and horrified when she finds out that her powerful fiance has murdered a naiad. And as she tries to figure out how she's going to respond to this, she discovers danger lurking in every canal, and that the ocean's peace is very fragile. So it's just tracing what happens in that sort of situation.
So what I really like about the storyline, and what I read a lot of reviews that people were giving that they really liked about it, is that you think of like mermaid stories, they're just going to be like this fun, flowery, magical thing, but you got really political with your storyline. There's elements of racism and prejudice, and there's a lot of scandal going on.
Absolutely.
So did you draw like a lot of inspiration kind of from the height of the political times that are going on while you're writing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's impossible to totally divorce, what you might be writing from things that you see around you. A big theme of the novel is injustice, and so it wasn't meant to be, an allegory of any particular political crisis, but I do think that you'll see echoes of that because injustice has similarities wherever you look. So I drew on things in the news. I drew on a lot of things in history. Themes that we see in fiction, across time, across genre, to sort of really try and use a mermaid setting, use an underwater city to explore some really serious issues, and to, I love fluffy books sometimes, but it just didn't seem like that was going to be the core of this story.
I love that you did that in a YA novel. The first chapter really draws you in. So in the first chapter, you're thinking that everything's perfect, and you're thinking of this beautiful mermaid land, and then all of a sudden things take like a crazy turn. And I was just like turning page after page after page. Like the first chapter really grabbed me, and I loved that.
Thank you. It was. It definitely starts out a little bit lighter, but then the murder happens by the end of the first chapter, and
you just jump right in.
You plunge into the political intrigue pretty fast.
Well put, plunge, mermaids.
There are a lot of puns you can do about mermaids.
Oh yeah, speaking of, I saw that it's going to be a sequel, right? It's going to be a series?
It's going to be a 4-book series and a short story coming out between each book. So I'm hoping that the next short story is going to launch in September or October.
That's awesome.
We're crossing fingers on that.
So can you make us a promise right now that if and when your book does get picked up by HBO or some other series, you're not going to make us wait 20 years to see the end of it? You're going to come to completion?
Yes, the series will be all the way over by first half of 2019.
Oh, this is such a relief. It's such a relief, honestly.
Yeah, she's been having a really tough time with George R.R. Martin, as you might have seen.
Yes, I saw it.
Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of mythology or other stories that have inspired you along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So with mermaid legend, there's so much mythology that's just absolutely, ripe for weaving into the story. The name of the city actually is called Thessalonica, which some people have assumed was based off of the Greek city name. There's a city that's very similar, but it's actually from an old mermaid story about Alexandra the Great Sister, who, as you do in Greek stories, tried to kill herself, became a mermaid, and proceeded to drown a bunch of sailors and crash a bunch of ships. I can't talk either today, apparently. There are mermaid stories from, all sorts of cultures. There are Chinese mermaid stories, Assyrian mermaid stories. Most of my mythology is pulled from Greek stories.
Very cool. I love that.
Yeah. So authors like Neil Gaiman are really big into mythology too. Do you have any authors that have inspired your career or your lust for writing?
Oh, there are so many to name. I've always really loved the fantasy genre. So I think probably almost any major author you can name, I have really appreciated their books. Let's see, what have I read recently that I found really inspiring as I was writing this? I really like reading a lot of young adult fiction. Obviously, I wrote it.
We all do, right?
And
we can admit that.
And I think that even books that aren't quite in my genre sometimes can just be super inspiring as far as telling a really great story. I really liked The Hunger Games. I found that really inspiring, which is, you know, another young adult novel that is very different in its setting, but it does sort of delve into some of those darker themes, those social issues. So I definitely found Suzanne Collins inspiring as I was in the process of writing.
Awesome. So have you always been into mermaids?
Oh, I've always really loved mermaids. When I was really little, Ariel was definitely my favorite Disney princess. Before I discovered Beauty and the Beast and Belle, but I really loved Ariel, and I've always really loved the ocean, which is something that I think I definitely got from my mom. She's obsessed with the ocean. She's currently trying to talk me into going to Tonga with her to snorkel with humpback whales, which sounds lots of fun and also a little bit terrifying. But so I just grew up with ocean animals and the ocean always as something that was just near and dear to my heart. So when I was coming up with a setting for the book, it seemed very natural to have it be mermaids, because then you can interact with the ocean and with all of the wonderful creatures that live there.
Awesome. Well, what would you say to readers who picked up your book?
Well, first of all, I would say thank you so much for picking up my book. Just, you know, it was a wonderful journey writing it, and I would really hope that you know, that you would find Jade's adventure compelling and buy the sequel when it comes out.
Yeah. Definitely.
I have a couple questions. How long have you been a writer? Was it a newer thing for you? Like, what was your path to that?
I've been writing since, you know, as early as I can remember. One of my earlier memories, I think I was about 5 or 6, was climbing into a computer chair and logging into like one of those old DOS computers. Do you guys remember those?
Yeah.
And tapping out this story about these kidnapped Persian princesses.
Oh.
So I loved writing from a very young age and had a flair for the dramatic, and for darker things even then.
I love
That's
that.
awesome.
Do you have any advice for young writers or people who just like want to jump in, besides like, should they just start writing anything or what?
Absolutely. You know, write something that you really love and that you're going to be able to see through to completion. And the big thing for me was really figuring out the process that worked for finishing a book. There are, you know, if you interview 10 people on the street, probably 8 of them will say that they would like to write a novel someday. But the way you're going to separate yourself from the crowd is finishing the book, doing the revisions on it, and then either publishing it or getting an agent and pitching it to houses. So work on finding a process that really works for you. For me, I am incapable of finishing a book without an outline ahead of time. Some people, just all of their words dry up if there's an outline. But figure out the thing that works, and then discipline yourself to sit in that chair every day and get words on the page, because that's how you move from being a wannabe writer to being a novelist that's actually producing books on a regular basis.
Great. And I just have to brag on you for 1 second, Catherine. So you had a New York Times best-selling author brag on you.
I did. Tosca Lee, who's written a number of just wonderful books. I admire her prose so much. It's beautiful. She very graciously agreed to read and endorse the book, and it was her comments were really sweet. I was so thankful that she took the time to do that.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Well, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
We're
you.
so glad that you could join us today, and you guys should check out her awesome book and check out her awesome hair.
She is a mermaid.
Yes, she is a mermaid, real-life mermaid. So thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And guys, don't forget, for 19 minutes after the conclusion of this episode, we will have a flash sale of this book, and we'll tell you guys a little bit more about that after this next little tidbit.
Yeah, we're gonna take a little break.
thanks again, Catherine. We loved having you on our show, and we loved that we could celebrate that mermaid life today.
Yes, and speaking of water babes, there is a story of Mother Ocean returning a gift back to a man who slipped a message in a bottle.
Douglas Stevens set adrift a message in a bottle in the summer of 1981 at Fernanda Beach, Florida. 36 years later, Brian Burchett was collecting shells at Little St. Simon's Island, Georgia, when he came across the bottle. He discovered the message on June 17th and was excited to find the author. The message read, "The bottle was set adrift off of Fernanda Beach, Florida on the 10th of June, 1981. To the finder, I appreciate if you would respond as to where, when, and by whom it was found. My permanent address is as follows on the back. Thanks, Douglas H. Stevens." The only problem is that he no longer lived at the address listed, so Burchett set out to find Stevens using social media. He had Southeast Adventure Outfitters posting on their social channels. They found Stevens, and the two have been in touch. They plan to meet up in August so Burchett can return the note to his rightful owner.
I love this. Have you guys ever put a message in a bottle?
No, have you?
No, it's like a thing that I have meant to do a million times and haven't done it.
Well, you guys know there is a Nicholas Sparks book called Message in a Bottle.
What?
And it's very similar to the story.
Oh, really?
Yes, well, sort of. A woman, I think her name was Teresa. It's been a long time since I read it. The book came out in like 1998 or something.
Oh,
like
wow.
That. And there was a movie about it too.
Oh, wow.
But she was running across the beach. She was getting over a divorce. She was really sad, and she finds this bottle, and there was a love note in it.
Uh-huh.
And she hooks up with
Oh,
the
of
author
course she
who
does.
wrote the love note, who was
Is that a spoiler, Morgan?
Spoilers.
But the guy who wrote the message and wrote the love note was getting over the loss of his wife. So typical Nicholas Sparks. But it's interesting that this guy put it out in 1981. Nicholas Sparks put together this story, and now it's real life. Except
Channeled it.
there's no love there. But hey.
Oh, well, when
Maybe,
they
we
meet
don't
up to
know.
exchange
We
the
don't know
note,
yet.
to be determined.
Exactly.
They might become lifelong friends.
Yeah,
or something like
I think
that.
it's really sweet.
Well, let us know in the comments if you put your own message in a bottle, and better yet, if you found one yourself. And as always, share this post and send us a message for a free t-shirt.
Woo.
Tell us your size, your style, and mailing address. And we have both V-neck and crew neck options available. So just send us a message and let us know.
And don't forget about that flash sale. So for 19 minutes, after this show, you can get your copy of Breakwater by Katherine Jones Payne for 99 cents. And, of course, if you've ever dressed as a mermaid or know someone who has, you guys have to share a photo with us and tag us in them. So hashtag that cover to cover and also hashtag mermaid fiction.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today and indulging us for Mermaid Friday. We hope you have an excellent weekend. I'm Mo.
I'm Andrea.
And I'm Morgan.
And as always, we will be back on Monday, July 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central Time. Until then, keep reading, writing, and being awesome. I know we will. Bye.